It's truly a wonderful day here in Laredo, Texas. As you can see, a lot of people coming into our city from Nuevo Laredo. Many things to announce, but before we get to the substance of our conference, let me just introduce to you some of the people that are here with us. And of course, the main purpose of this news conference is to have our Congressman Henry Cuellar here with us, who will speak to you shortly. But Congressman, thank you for being with us.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Also, too, we have from the Laredo Chamber of Commerce, our President and CEO, Miguel Conchas. Mr. Conchas, welcome. And our City Manager, Mr. Robert A. Eads. Robert, good morning. And from our bridge system, our Director, Yvette Limon. Ms. Limon, hi. How are you?
First of all, I want to thank the mayor and Robert Eads, and again, thank you so much, and certainly the city, also the police chief, and of course the emergency, Mr. Hurd, and all of y'all for being here. While I was sitting here, I was looking at the folks that are coming in, and this is without the non-essential. So imagine, Miguel, once we start getting the other folks, there are three things that have to be in place. A couple years ago, I got over $130 million to fix bridge number 1 and number 2. So we fixed the infrastructure, but the personnel, we need, certainly we got to have that personnel there. We're talking about how many lines or personnel they have to. So there's something that we need to certainly talk to our men and women in blue. And certainly it's not only the personnel, but it's also the processes that are used to work on that. So it is something that we certainly have to get ready to make sure we have that, Mayor. So when we do another call, and I want to thank the city of Laredo, because Mayor put together a meeting with the county judge, city, county, federal, and state to talk about what happens if there are some changes that the mayor talked about. In fact, yesterday I spent a weekend doing 5 graduations in the Valley, and I got a call from Richard Cortez, who's the new county judge, and he was also worried about some of the changes. And I said, one of the things you all need to do is what the mayor did. I said, Judge, you need to call a meeting together like Mayor Sines did, is to put all the stakeholders to get ready, because there might be 3 changes that might happen, or probably will happen. The question is, when exactly is that going to happen? So we have to talk about those 3 things. So let me I'll repeat some of the things that the mayor said. I have talked to the secretary twice personally. We've written letters with John Cornyn and other members to say, it's time that we lift the non-essential. They call it non-essential. For us here, we call it essential, because before the pandemic, Mexicans will come over. They were coming over 18 million, and they would spend over $19 billion. So think about this, quote, temporary restriction, and I think over a year, I don't call that temporary, but anyway, temporary restriction. So think about the billions of dollars that the U.S. has lost, or if you look at the Dallas Federal Reserve, some of the businesses here depend over 40% on the shoppers from that side. So we have spoken to the secretary twice. I've spoken to her twice. I talked to the CPP commissioner. I talked to Dr. Anthony Fauci, and I think he had the best answer, where he says, what's the problem? And I said, I agree. What's the problem about opening up the bridges? I talked to the top people at CDC and other health advisors about opening. So I think we're almost there. The question is, you look at those indicators and what people have said, what we're missing is the exact date. But I feel that hopefully by the end of June or July, this is going to open up. And what we have to look at is what happens when that the border restrictions opens. We want that open. But tied into that, Title 42 is tied into the non-essential, because that is what they use that justification for not letting the Mexicanos in, or the Canadians on the northern side. So there's 3 changes, should I say, that I think we need to look at very carefully. One is the border restrictions, and we want that. We want them lifted. But unfortunately, it's tied into Title 42. Title 42, as you know, is a 1893 law, got codified in 1944. The former president used that to do some of the changes we're seeing. It's a health where you basically, Border Patrol, for example, can get somebody and expel somebody because of a health reason. There is less personnel time used to do that. The always, or under the current law, is Title A, which is the way we've been doing it for many years, and that is we can do the same thing as Title 42, but it's going to take more time, it's going to take more personnel, and certainly a lot more costs. Detention costs are going to go into the billions of dollars. Personnel costs, Border Patrol, so instead of them being out in the field, they have to be at centers doing the paperwork, and it takes time away. So it's going to cost time and it's going to cost resources, but they can still do that. So that is the second change that we're looking at, getting rid of Title 42. The third change is going to be what we call the queue or the metering, where they have, CBP will have folks in the middle of the bridge stopping folks. There is a lawsuit going on, and I think a lot of the folks in Homeland feel that that will be lost, which I don't understand why, but that will be lost. That basically means that instead of them being in the middle of the bridge, people can come in. And we're talking about people from Central America. We're talking about people from other countries that can come in, and once they pass the middle of the bridge, they're in U.S. territory, and they can ask for the asylum or claim credible fears. That could increase the number of people that would just rush over and get on the U.S. side. So that causes another type of impact. So the border restrictions, we want. Title 42, personally, I wish they would keep it, but it's tied in to the non-essential travel. And then, of course, getting rid of the queue or the metering in the middle of the bridge will have an impact. This is why the mayor and I want to thank you and your team, Robert, for putting this meeting together. And we need to talk about what's going to happen when that happens. When we see those either one change, two, or maybe three changes, depending when they happen. And I feel that they might be around the same time itself there. We don't have an exact date, but every indication is it's coming soon. The vaccines that we sent off to Mexico, you saw at Concierge, Marcelo Ebrard, said that he's going to use those vaccines to be sent to the 39 border towns with the U.S. so they can open up the border. So we're seeing indications on the Mexican side. We're seeing indications over here. The only question is, we know it's going to happen, we just don't know exactly when. And this is why, as a community, we have to be ready we'll let the federal government work on this, but we still got to work. The city and the county and the state, we got to work with the federal government. Well, we asked them a question, Mayor. The men and women in blue said, we can handle it. It's going to put a lot of pressure on us. And the men and women in green also said, we can handle it, but it's going to be burdensome. And if you really talk to the men and women in green and blue, they're not going to say it publicly because they can't say it, but I'll say it for them. They're a little worried about what's happening, and they are worried because of this, everything happening at the same time and a different policy. And as we said, we believe in legal migration. We just don't believe in illegal migration. And this causes certain dynamics that we have to look at. On top of that, with all respect to the governor, you have the governor saying that he's calling our border areas, including Webb County, a disaster. With all due respect to the governor, what was it? Cities over 200,000 like Laredo, safer than Austin, where he's at, Dallas, and so many areas. And Chief, we certainly want to thank you and your other partners for providing that security there. Then he's talking about arresting everybody for, I think, criminal trespass. Good luck with that. That's all I got to say with that. I know that's not practical, but again, it's a political statement with all due respect to the governor. And then he also, I looked at the declaration. The only thing that worries me there is when he said he wanted to not give when he told Health and Human Services, Texas Health and Human Services, don't grant any more licensing and wind down the state licensing. That could have an impact on the unaccompanied kids. If it's a federal emergency shelter, we don't need the state. But still, we should not be fighting each other. We ought to find ways that we can work together and on this. So, you know, we got a lot of challenges, but this is where Laredo and our local community, you know, we stand together. We stand working together to make sure we address some of the uncertainties that we're going to see here.
Sandra Sanchez has a follow-up for you, Congressman.
Yeah, do you want to get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, you got to speak a little louder.
Right, Congressman, are you for like continued metering?
Oh, for the metering? Yes, I am. I support Title 42. I support opening up the border to non-essential. We should have done that a long time ago. And the metering should be important because of the new dynamics, because there will be people, not only from Central America, but from 150 countries that will now start coming, because once they pass the middle of the bridge, they're in. And then once they cross in, then they can ask for asylum. So if you think about it, if you're smart about it, you don't have to cross the river anymore. All you have to do is get right in the middle and cross the middle of the bridge, and you're in the United States, and you can ask for asylum. Again, we see extremes. With my opinion, people need to listen in Washington. Need to listen to border communities a lot more. They need to listen to the mayor, to the chief, to the local chambers. They need to listen to the local communities, and they got to understand what the practicalities or what impact some of those policies change. Making a policy from 1,500 miles away is very different from being here and seeing the practicality of those changes in the laws.
What would happen if Mexico refuses to take back migrants under Title 42?
Well, Chief, you wanna answer the question? I can give you my opinion, but I think the Chief can tell you. Look, think about we had 178,000. We're waiting for the new figures to come out. The figures are going to be, from what I hear, over 150,000. So imagine the governor trying to raise 150,000 every month, and the practicalities. Where do you put them? You know, you can ask my brother, see what he thinks about that. Putting thousands of people there, and then of course, then you have certain folks on the left that don't believe in detention centers and shelters. So it just creates a lot of practical situation that I don't think is possible. But again, I think it's more of a political statement, without due respect to the governor, because I certainly want to work with the governor on that. And then what does Mexico do on not accepting some of those folks? Well, a lot of it just depends on the relationship that we want to make sure that we continue working with Mexico. The vice president is in Guatemala, got there last night, and then we'll be going over to Mexico City. And so we certainly want to make sure that we work with them. But that relationship with Mexico and Central America is going to be key. In the appropriations, I've added certain things for what we do at the border, what we do with Mexico, what we do on that. But that will be a process that we'll work with the administration as the year goes on. But I'd like to hear from the chief and see what he thinks about arresting 150,000 people a day. And keep in mind that what happens is that, and I'll say this, and I'll let the chief say this. Look, every border community is different. Del Rio has a different profile of people coming in. The Valley has a different profile. Laredo has a different type of profile. We have less activity than Del Rio and the Valley, but they were sending, Chief, I don't know what the numbers are, Chief heard 250 to 350 from the Valley. Then they started sending people from Del Rio, and I think they're sending more adults now. And keep in mind that it's not only Central Americans and Mexicans, but the last month we had over 30,000 people from 150 countries. Romania, India, name the country, Turkey, name the country, 150 countries plus that are coming in. What I worry about, because some of the changes that I mentioned, the 3 changes, is that you're going to see maybe not as high numbers, but you're going to have people from other countries. They're going to say, hey, all we have to do is bring a child and we'll be able to come in. And I wish that the administration would understand that that has an impact on the local communities, because if I was somewhere else in Romania or Turkey somewhere, I'd say, hey, in the US, except if you're a contiguous country like Mexico and Canada, everybody else gets treated differently, except for the Mexicans and the Canadians. The whole world is treated very differently, and all you have to do is bring a child and you come into the United States. And this is where the administration needs to understand that. Chief.
Thank you, Congressman Cuellar. With regards to the notion of arresting people for criminal trespass crossing our borders, again, we have a great partnership with our federal law enforcement partners here locally, CBP. They do an excellent job at handling the influx of migrants through the border here at the bridges and illegally crossing our river. So we continue to work with them to address those issues. We have Stone Gardens monies that are federal funds that allow us to partner and work these operations together. So the emphasis for us, for the Laredo Police Department, is working those cases that spill over into our community, those stash houses, those home invasions that are attributed to this type of activity. We continue to leverage those funds and continue to ask for funding. We've been successful of presenting our case to the governor's office with the anti-gang center that's due to kick off here later this summer. It's a great move towards addressing those issues at the right spots. As far as illegal immigrants crossing the border and charging them with a misdemeanor criminal trespass, it's very impractical. I don't know how it would be managed. We would have to have great coordination with our local prosecutor's office, as well as, that was mentioned, with our jails. So we're going to be keeping these migrants locked up. And then what happens after they're processed? Then we hand them over to the federal agencies to handle them as illegal immigrants. So it's very impractical. I don't know how that could be accomplished without a great number of additional resources, manpower to our community. So we'll continue to work with our federal partners, continue to address the issues here at the border that we've been doing for years, and continue to have a positive impact on these changes that are coming up.